Welcome back, everyone. Our next presenter is AGENTIX Corp. It trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol AGTX and is a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company focused on the development of innovative therapeutics for the treatment of metabolic diseases, including type 2 diabetes, mellitus, chronic obesity, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, known as NAFLD, and non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. You probably know it as NASH. Please welcome its CEO, Rudy Mazzocchi. Welcome, Rudy.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I really appreciate the time this morning.
All right. We look forward to your presentation. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I just wanted to start with maybe a brief background on myself. I think it's probably relevant as part of leading a management team as the chairman CEO. I've been labeled as a serial startup CEO, entrepreneur, founder or co-founder of 17 companies, mainly medical device, med tech, biotech, recipient of multiple Entrepreneur of the Year awards. And the majority of my transactions end up in M&A. We've sold multiple companies to market leaders such as Medtronic, J&J, Abbott, C.R. Bard, which is now Becton Dickinson, several IPOs. Although this is my first uplisting from an OTC to the NASDAQ, or potentially the New York Stock Exchange American. We're in a process which we'll talk about shortly as well. So my background also includes experience from way back in 2013-14 in medical cannabinoids, cannabis, but a little frustrating back then. With my clinical background, I was really looking for more proper dosing studies, clinical validation, and dealing with the FDA, which at the time the market didn't just really support. But it was a great learning and discovery process, which led to, I think, deepening our experiences here at AGENTIX, that we now understand how our natural endocannabinoid receptors work in our body, so how cannabinoids interact with two main receptors, CB1 and CB2. And basically, now we are developing synthetic molecules that compete with the natural substance of cannabinoids that either inhibit or stimulate, or sometimes we'll say upregulate or downregulate responses of the receptors. They even block and can reverse states of diseases. So the company itself, AGENTIX, is a combination of assets from two former companies. We merged those and then merged into a public operating company known as AGENTIX, OTC listed company. These assets, which we're going to walk through in a minute, have been under development for about 5 to 10 years and approximately 25 million paid in capital. We have a very clean company, no debt, no options, no warrants. And again, it's a very exciting time for us to look at engagement of investment bankers right now to help us uplist to the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. So advancing forward, this is our standard forward-looking statement. I will be making some forward-looking comments here. There is a deck that's going to be available following the conference. It's available, and we look forward to. If you want to take a deeper dive, there's a lot smarter scientists and medical chemists behind me that would gladly walk you through more of the chemistry and pharmacology of what we're about to address. So the underlying theme here, again, now that we've learned about the endocannabinoid system, the company is really focused on the treatment of metabolic diseases. And although metabolic dysfunctions and diseases affect all of these systemic areas, we're primarily focused on type 2 diabetes, treatment of obesity, fatty liver disease, and you've heard NASH as well. So these are a collection of small molecules, therapeutic agents that are designed not to pass the blood-brain barrier. Okay, so these are peripherally restricted, which is a key element. There's a former product known as Ramanabant from Sanofi that was basically approved in Europe for these applications, although they had terrible side effects that did pass the blood-brain barrier, resulting in some psychological defects and even some suicidal tendencies. So the product was eventually pulled from the market, but had great efficacy, clinical efficacy. So again, the key here is to regulate these metabolic functions and to interact with the CB1 receptors. And we have preclinical and clinical evidence that we're going to walk you through as well. So again, the key element, which is a differentiator here with our product offering and compared to Ramanabant, is the fact that we eliminate or minimize both diffusion and active transport across the blood-brain barrier. These are two primary assets. It's called AGTX 2004 for the treatment of type 2 diabetes and obesity. They are now IND enabled. We actually have an IND approval. We're actually going back to the FDA to look at modifying the protocol for our phase 1 clinical trials, which should take place early this summer. AGTX 2003 is more designed for the fatty liver disorders, and those are already GMP prepared, and we're looking at filing an IND later this year as well. We're waiting on some toxicity studies to support that submission. So these assets primarily came from two main sources, the National Health Research Institute and NHRI in Taiwan. We have an exclusive license. This is the firm that actually did all the discovery, design, and preclinical work and did the submission for the IND, which we've now taken over and assumed. This is for AGTX 2004. This is for the obesity and type 2 diabetes. And then RTI, the Research Triangle Institute, which I think is better known here in the US, we have an exclusive license for AGTX 2003. So multiple bites at the apple, if you will, on the clinical side. And Chemveda is our contracted manufacturer. They're providing the GMP product. So a little bit about the science. Again, we won't go too deep here, but I just want to share some of the evidence we have on the pharmacology. Two big takeaways from this slide is that, again, we're showing that it's peripherally restricted. All right, it does not cross the blood-brain barrier, and also that it's an inverse agonism has been demonstrated, which means it's actually reversing the effect of the disease. So it's very, very exciting. This is what got us excited about this particular asset, because it's a requirement of the FDA for the liver disease disorders to show reversal of the disease, not the fact that we're just stopping it, but reversing it. But again, this two takeaways here, we're showing the peripheral restriction and the inverse agonism. And here's, again, a little bit of science. So this is an empirical data showing the gene expression. If you see those on the top level there, the black bar indicates a controlled diet. The red is a fatty substance diet, and the gold, blue, and green represent different dosages of a compound to show the reduction of the hepatic disorder. And most excitingly, if you see it here now, this is a mouse study. The top slide's in A. You can see the standard, the SD is the natural diet. You see the high fat diet in the results on what it looks like in the liver. And these are different dosages. And then on the far right, the 1 mpk shows the clearing of the liver. So again, this is a requirement by the FDA to show the reversal and not just the stopping of the disorder. And this is PET studies to show that they're verify that the drug compound does not enter the brain, is peripherally restricted. There's no significant penetration, and that there's a higher affinity, the CB1 receptors in the liver and kidney, showing high affinity there, actually greater than Ramanabant. So as a result, we're seeing improved glycemic controls, improved insulin control. The red line there is the comparison to Ramanabant. We're showing at least even greater efficiencies under certain dosage studies. So phenomenal results. Again, these are preclinical results that got us it's getting us the IND approval to move forward into the clinic. And finally, again, shows reduced weight gain and improves triglyceride levels in the mouse animal model. And again, Ramanabant is highlighted in the red in our standard control on the top bar. Competition, I always say what competition, but in reality, you can see across the top column is our compounds. The only thing missing there is our clinical stage for the AGTX 2003, but they cover all three applications here, clinical applications, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and fatty liver disease. There's a rare company that has going after one or two. We've already been in preliminary discussions with some potential partners, corporate strategic partners that are interested in potentially financing and collaborating on both the clinical development and clinical aspects and regulatory submissions of our compounds in exchange for perhaps an exclusive commercialization rights to the product. Nordisk, as you see on the bottom there, is one of those potential partners. So management team, we have a pretty deep, well, it's a lean but very deep experienced team. We have Martin Schroeder, who's our Chief Scientific Officer. He's already actually done this on multiple occasions. He's taken about a dozen biotech companies through clinical development to commercialization. David Feeney is our Chief Financial Officer, and Salman Hoda joins us as our Senior VP of Product and Portfolio Development, Business Development. And he will actually help me significantly in identifying these potential strategic partners in a very, very near term as we enter the clinic and file for regulatory submissions. The board is relatively lean. There's just 2 board members currently, and we're looking to fulfill maybe 2 to 3 more additional independent directors. In preparation, we have all the committees in place, the audit, comp, and governance committees in preparation for our uplisting. And our advisory board, again, led by Martin Schroeder, Dr. Martin Schroeder, and these 2 individuals, Regio and Mitra, are both from NHRI as well as RTI, and they bring decades of experience and really with their focus on understanding the endocannabinoid receptors and how to modulate them. And finally, sort of the highlight slide, again, huge markets, as we know, the type 2 diabetes and obesity, chronic obesity and fatty liver disease, huge global markets. And we do believe we have first-in-class, best-in-class assets right now that have actually surpassed the efficacy of previously approved and compounds or drugs that have shown clinical efficacy. These are patented molecules. So we're building a strong portfolio of intellectual property. We have well-defined clinical regulatory pathways in place. We're engaging clinical research organizations, and regulatory advisors are under our belt already and giving us that clean pathway to both FDA and international regulatory approvals. We've been working diligently on uplisting to the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange American. We've been an OTC listed company now and striving to get to the QB and then or fast forward to the NASDAQ directly. And experienced management team, that's one of my favorite topics. I think we have decades of experience here in not only development, IP development, clinical and regulatory affairs, but also commercialization and partnering and managing public companies. So we'll expand that team and the board as we proceed. So you can find, we have on our website, AGENTIXcorp.com. Here's my contact information. Would really like, if you're interested in this exciting new venture, I would love to have you on board. And if there's any interest in taking a deeper dive on both the science or where we're at from a financial perspective, I look forward to have that discussion with you. So we'll leave that open now for perhaps a few questions.
All right, Rudy, thank you. We do have some questions from our audience. Let's jump right in. Sid Hines wants to know, when you went public, was it a traditional RTO with an existing company? And if so, can he assume all liabilities of that previous company were extinguished?
That's right. Yes, we merged with a very clean operating company. It was already OTC listed. It was in a different industry. There was no liabilities. And again, as I mentioned, there's no debt, no options, no warrants at this time.
Neil Gibson wants to know, what's your current burn?
It's nominal. Right now, we're just funding clinical trials activity. It's probably between $80,000 to $100,000 a month. We're doing an interim small raise to give us the runway, the bridge to the uplisting. And we plan on raising 15 to 20 million in that as a NASDAQ listed company.
Olivia Sutton wants to know, how much do you have to raise to keep up with the expenses and get to sales? And what is the plan to raise those funds? Is it equity or debt?
Probably majority equity, most likely equity, a little bit of debt. So again, we're raising an interim round of just a couple million to get us to the uplisting on the NASDAQ. We're looking at a 15 to 20 million raise at that point. But the play here too is with strategic corporate partners. We're looking to partner early on, because as my experience too with companies, and many of the investors or audience might know, large pharma, big companies like to control the endpoints of a clinical study. The endpoints of a study translate then into labeling claims, marketing claims, even how, use instructions. So they want that level of control. So we're going to identify those partners early on, and in exchange for milestone payments, which will support both the clinical and regulatory process, we'll give them exclusive distribution rights. So there'll be payments along the way, supporting the development, and eventually then they'll have commercialization rights. We do not intend to build our own sales and marketing team.
Okay. And Paul Becker wants to know if you have any convertible instruments on the books, and if so, what are they convertible at?
None today. No. Again, very, very clean.
Okay. Lori White wants to know, do you have any joint ventures with any majors in the space?
Not yet. Great. There's some opportunities on the forefront. We just wanted to get into the clinic. Like I said, we'll be in the clinic later this summer. Although we have identified some additional assets that we may be going after, that are relevant, that relate to our sort of mechanism of action, and will complement our portfolio. So they may may result in joint ventures, but we're going to look at possibly just acquiring those assets as well.
Okay. And Monique wants you to talk about your technology. How's it different than what other companies are using to treat the same ailments? And what is going to set you apart? Why should Monique be investing in your company?
Great question. So again, in comparison to medical cannabis, right, or cannabinoids, from a natural plant, these are synthetic, customized designer molecules, if you will. So there's two upsides to that. One, we can make them very, very specific to the receptors that we're targeting to regulate or modulate the disorder, right? So they're customized, and they're also now, because they're customized and novel, they're also protectable, they're patentable. So we already hold patents on many of these molecules. So that's what really differentiates. And I've spent many years, if you will, trying to educate some of the market and even lobbyists in Washington in regards to the difference between medical cannabinoids and pharmaceutical-based cannabinoids. This is a pharmaceutical play, okay, with synthetic molecules. So that's the biggest differentiator, the biggest way we can protect our technology and make it proprietary, and makes us stand above the rest.
All right, great answer. Joshua, as you mentioned, New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ listing, can you give a timing on that? And who are the current auditors?
So we have a small auditing firm today, and we're probably looking to upgrade as we go to the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. We have visibility, and I've been in discussions with the New York Stock Exchange American. My track record is always of taking companies to the NASDAQ, and I don't want to leave them out. They're always saying, what's wrong with the New York Stock Exchange? So we're entertaining that opportunity as well. And our goal right now is to identify a lead underwriter. That's our primary objective today, and to help us support that uplisting, and maybe even a bridge to get to that uplisting. So that goal is to be done hopefully by as early as by the end of the calendar year, early next year.
Great. Juju Ellis says the assets and development partnerships look great. How soon could you license perhaps one of them to strengthen your balance sheet and justify filing the valuation gap between assets and current share price?
Another great question. It's related to is identification of that partner, right? That'll be a licensing agreement as well. So if we identify large pharma ABC, for example, that will end up in a license for commercialization, right, and for use. So we're trying to identify them sooner than later because we are entering the clinic. We want them to be engaged and involved with defining those endpoints as we go into phase 2 clinical trials and even support the cost and development. So that'll include a license with that relationship.
Jeanette says, I understand you're a biotech and the value is in the potential patents of the products. That being said, how far away are you from commercialization and sales?
Well, I think realistically, it's a 5 to 8 year pathway for final approval from the FDA. Now, sales is going to be related to that, again, that commercial partner. Many of our companies in our industry book those development income as revenue as well. So as we obtain milestone payments from these corporate strategic partners, we'll book those as revenue. So it could be as early as next year.
Great. Randy Gonzalez asks, what valuation are you doing the raise at? And when was your last raise? And what valuation was it?
Yeah, right now the current valuation is stuck around between 25 and 30 million. We are probably looking at a slight discount to that valuation for this interim raise. But as many of the audience members might know, in order to be listed as a NASDAQ company, we have to have about a $4 share price. So we're hoping to grow that valuation organically as well. But at the end of the day, if we need to, it might be somewhat of a reverse split to get to the share price to qualify it for us for the NASDAQ listing. But again, our efforts right now, I think we're undervalued today. There's a great deal of press announcements to be generated in the next coming year as well to support a higher share price. So I'm confident that we'll not only grow it organically, but with our efforts and announcements of what's happening in the clinic, even announcing a potential strategic partner that's on the horizon, those licensing arrangements that you mentioned, and possibly even the acquisition of additional assets would all drive the share price.
Great. Last question for you, Rudy. Olivia Gutierrez wants you to clarify what your end result is. Is it going to be licensing the tech, not retail sales? Just clarify for that.
Yes. Again, we're not designed to build our own national or global sales and marketing organization. That's not in the works. I think we're focused specifically on development of the products, the novelty and developing the intellectual property, identifying the right corporate strategic partner. So it will be to hand off to a commercial, global partner, or the likes of a Roche or Novo Nordisk or whomever it might be, for global, worldwide commercial rights. And it will receive, again, payments along the way. There'll be milestone payments and then royalties to the company and the shareholders at the end of the day.
Great. Do you have any closing remarks?
Well, I think, of all the ventures I've been involved in, and finally all these decades of experience is sort of accumulating in really driving something that I think is a significant game changer in this industry. It's novel, it's protectable. My mantra has always been good clinical validation, and that's going to result in great patient care at the end of the day. So hope your investors are eager to join us.
Absolutely. Please join us again in the near future with some updates. Thank you for your time, Rudy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone, stay with us as we transition to the next company. We'll be right back.